What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise live here on a Monday. Starting your week off right. Me and Eric are in, I don't know, what do you call your room when it's like 1,000,000 degrees? Because right now we are sweating, man.
Sauna. I don't know.
Yeah, we're each in a sauna right now. I think Eric's sauna is a little bit hotter, but man, it's absolutely boiling here in Portland. But we still got a stream for you today. On Thursday's stream, I asked you guys if you wanted me to wear a cutoff or you wanted me to not stream, because I was planning on wearing a cutoff. I'm going full Pat McAfee lately. I'm not even wearing a cutoff, so you guys win because you get a stream, and I'm not showing the shoulders today. But we will also give you guys a win because we're going to talk about a star guard saying his GM lied. Unfortunately, it's not our star guard, but it is a star guard, Eric, talking about how his GM lied. And I think it's interesting to talk about this situation and maybe reference it back to Damian Lillard's situation. But then also, we're going to play a game of Capture the Flag. That was my favorite game in PE, by the way, growing up. That was
Capture the Flag is awesome, yeah.
Yeah. So, hopefully if we try and capture the flag in the future, hopefully it'll be awesome. We'll talk about Cooper Flagg, who reclassified to the class of 2024. He will be in the 2025 NBA draft, and right now is the presumed number one pick. He's going to be a really, really good NBA player, in my opinion, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring this edition of Blazers Uprise Live. Use the promo code BELIEVE for a 50% reward bonus, BLEAV. You can get in on this baseball action. I was telling Eric while we were live on the intro animation, I'm pissed off right now. If you're a Mariners fan, you're probably pissed off too, because that game was miserable. Get no hit almost through 7 innings, down 5-0, come back to take a 6-5 lead in the 9th, and then give up a walk-off bunt to lose. That was miserable. But you can have some fun with baseball by using that promo code BELIEVE with betonline.ag. Thank you to them for sponsoring this stream. I don't want to think about baseball. I just want to think about basketball right now, man. Baseball is just, I'm frustrated as a Mariners fan right now. Eric, how was your day?
My day was okay. Just dealing with some crap, but yeah. How was chat's day? I hope everyone had a good weekend, and let us know if you did anything fun over the weekend or today.
Yeah. Did you guys accomplish anything today? Did you guys go through any trials today or tribulations? Let me know in the chat. I always enjoy reading about your guys' day, especially your Mondays. Hopefully you guys had a good start to your week. I came back from Tillamook. Peep the new hat. Peep the new hat. I got it from the Tillamook gift store. Went to the cheese factory. It was awesome. Got cheese curds and a double grilled cheese and ice cream. And it was amazing. So, I basically ate enough there so that I didn't have to eat the rest of the day because I wanted to make sure I got my dairy at Tillamook. I'm also trying to, I don't know. No, I'm not. It'll be a surprise if it happens. It'll be a surprise. I'm not going to say anything. Never mind. We'll see. Fingers crossed. All right? That's all you guys get. But anyway, we got Connor saying he's sweating his things off. Good for you, Connor. I'm glad you joined us because we're sweating too.
Why is Zach not modded?
Zach, why are you not modded? Did he make a new account?
Just so he wouldn't be mod.
Well, okay, Zach, that's your second account? Okay, well, it's modded now. Let's see. Standard moderator.
He says, imagine being so frustrated by baseball that you want to talk about the Blazers.
We're not even going to talk about the Blazers too much today. I guess in reference to Cooper Flagg, but we got to start off with this Morey situation. What's up, Devin? He says Embiid took all Sixers info out of his bio. And then he says Embiid to Portland confirmed. Okay, we can tie this James Harden situation to the Blazers, but first, let's just set the scene. So, today, James Harden was speaking. Do you know where he was speaking at?
He's in China right now.
He's in China right now, and he was speaking to a crowd of people and said, God, let me pull up the quote.
I got it.
You got it? Yeah, I was trying to remember off the top of my head, but you got it.
He says, Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Then he says, "Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of."
Yeah. So, we got one star guard calling out a GM as a liar, right? We've talked about hopefully Dame being willing to do that, although Dame would probably never go about it in that way. Apparently, James Harden's agent told him not to make those comments, and he still did it, obviously out of anger, because earlier in the day, before he spoke, there was a report that the Sixers were just 100% planning on bringing him back to training camp. And basically, the chronicle of events, in chronological order, was, of course, Brooklyn trades Harden for Ben Simmons and picks to the Philadelphia 76ers. Then James Harden, in last year's offseason, takes a pay cut. And that was in order for Philadelphia to use the full mid-level exception on PJ Tucker. And then was in the second to last year of his deal this past season, but had a player option this offseason. And
no, he actually was a free agent last summer, opted out of his deal to take less, and signed a 1+1.
Yeah, took the pay cut.
Yeah.
Had a 1+1 2-year deal, player option this offseason. And everybody expected him to opt out and sign a max contract extension with the 76ers. And the reasoning was he took a pay cut last offseason with the wink-wink promise that he would get a max contract extension this offseason. So it was surprising when he opted into his contract, right? And there was whispers that he might go back to Houston, which I always thought was weird. Like, why wouldn't he want to be in Philadelphia? Didn't really make much sense at the time. But it came down to he didn't get the contract extension he thought he would get. He opts in, surprisingly, and demands a trade. And that raised eyebrows, like, oh, this dude wants on another team. He's not going to be happy no matter where he goes, right? But then again, it was the confusing part about that situation with Eric was, why did he opt in if he doesn't want to be in Philadelphia? Why didn't he opt out? And so he opts in, demands a trade, and doesn't get traded. A lot of stuff that doesn't add up there. What do you really think happened? And why do you think Morey is a liar?
Well, one other thing to add, Morey came out a couple days ago and said that he would not be trading James Harden and that he would be a 76er despite the trade request. I don't even think this is how it went down.
You don't think, huh?
No, like this isn't a thought or like what I think went down. I'm like 99% sure this is how it went down. He opted out last year to bring in PJ Tucker and Daniel House with the promise that he would get taken care of this summer. And, they had their struggles this year, bounced out of the second round again. But once the new league calendar hit, because if they signed PJ Tucker last year, they're hard capped. So they needed him to sign for a certain amount to be able to fit these other players under the hard cap. So that's why he took less money to get them to do that. And this is why it'll come up important later, why unless you're with an organization like Tim Duncan with the Spurs, who had already won multiple championships and were a proven winning organization, that you probably shouldn't think that whatever your organization is going to come through for you without that being in writing, and it can't be in writing. So, so I think during the season they realized that paying him a max contract for 3 or 4 years or whatever they had tentatively agreed on was foolish, and they were hoping that he would accept less again. But the opt-in thing, what happened was, this was another lie by Morey, and that's why Harden is pissed.
Yeah. And
it's because Morey told him, opt in and we'll trade you where you want to go, because that way they at least get something for him. If he leaves in free agency, whether it would have been to Houston or wherever, they get nothing, and the Philadelphia 76ers are screwed. So Harden opted in simply so that the 76ers could get something for him. In return, he doesn't have to go to Houston, which is the only team that was probably maybe willing to give him a max contract. And he can go to Clippers or whatever team he picks, and the Sixers can get something for him. But then, much like the situation with Damian Lillard, once it came down to, okay, well, the Clippers are going to give you this. It's not great, but it's better still than what you would have gotten had I left. Morey's like, nah, I want a superstar, and I want an elite player and multiple draft picks and all this stuff. I'm not trading him for anything less, so I'm going to keep him. And Harden's like, what the heck? I wouldn't have opted in then, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's twice now. You lied to me about giving me a max contract this summer and rewarding me for being a team player last year and taking less so you could build your roster the right way. You failed to deliver on that. And then I was still willing to do something because you promised me it would lead to you taking care of me after I did this. And now you are refusing to trade me for anything? Like, you're just going to keep me unhappy, like knowing I'm unhappy and you made these promises to me? So I'm not surprised that Harden came out and just threw Morey completely under the bus today. But it's also at the same time hard to like feel too sorry for Harden given what he's done in the past with both Houston and Brooklyn. But this is a situation where, I mean, what do you want the guy to do? He took less money so you could sign 2 players last year. Like, if you would have done that, asked Dame to do that, and he did it, and you still screwed him over, like, I don't know. It's just, I don't think there's no protections there if you're a player, like, that they'll come through for you, but it's just a real shady way for me to do, for me personally, to think that that's how GMs do business. And I know it's a business and all that stuff.
Yeah, I can hear Stephen Vaughn's voice right now. It's it's just a business. It's a business.
Several people made fun of the reports that free agents are looking closely, or other players are looking closely at what the Blazers are doing with Damian Lillard to monitor their situation for the future. And this could be a case where several players, like, everyone knows what Harden did last year for Morey. And if that's how he treats Harden after doing that, when it comes time for like a Maxi's contract extension or whatever, and they're like, oh, well, maybe you should take a little less than the max so we can do that. If I'm Maxi, I'm like, no, give me the max, or I'm taking the qualifying offer and bouncing, right? Like, I just don't I don't think a lot of players are going to trust Daryl Morey in the future. Now, Portland's probably a lesser example because, I mean, honestly, not many players care about Portland anyway, so they're not thinking about coming here. But Philly, is a big market, a big team, and should be, as long as they have Embiid, somewhat championship contender. So, that's a much more prominent situation. And I don't know what to do if you're Philly moving forward. Do you just fire Morey and hope you can repatch things with Harden and move on from your GM? Or do you now have a GM in place that has burnt a bridge with maybe potential players wanting to play there? And maybe even Embiid.
Yeah, well, I think the answer to that is kind of long-winded because people say it's just a business, right? It happens all the time, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's what Stephen Vaughn would say, right? But there's business and then there's bad business, right? You don't tell a star player that take less money this year, next year I will take care of you, and then you don't do it because you're going to end up in a situation where that guy isn't going to want to play for you. That's not good. That's not a good business decision. Or it goes to the extreme that it did today where he's just straight up calling you a liar, and now it's public information about how you did him wrong, which is not good for your reputation with players across the league, with agents across the league, and it puts your team between a rock and a hard place where you're getting thrown under the bus, rightfully so, for lying to Harden. And now Embiid apparently has taken all Sixers stuff out of his bio, which, maybe doesn't mean anything, but I'm sure if you're Joel Embiid, and right, like, you want to compete, you want to win, and you have a star next to you that's taking a pay cut to try and help the team win, and then your GM is then going against his word and lying to that star and basically forcing that star to call him out and ask out and demand a trade, that's not in Embiid's best interest, right? And Embiid, I assume has some friendly relations with Harden, and maybe it's as far as like Embiid is pissed that James Harden got screwed because he's friends with James Harden. At the very least, as a competitor, I'm sure he's pissed that Daryl Morey has, for seemingly no reason at all, put the Sixers in a position where they have a player who is vowing to not play for the organization as long as the GM's a part of it, and basically is in a situation where they can't really get much back for him, and by him opting in, if they trade him to where he doesn't want to go, the GM just straight up lied. Like, how is that going to look to future players? It makes Embiid, as a competitor, winning in Philadelphia long term, very, very difficult. As if it already wasn't difficult enough because they've never made it out of the second round. So what you're sitting here with is a guy who wants out because he was lied to, a superstar who is seemingly pissed off at the organization. That is bad business. That's the thing. If you want to keep it in the scope of, the NBA's a business, GM's got to do what they got to do, if you just keep it in the scope of it's just a business, it still does not justify it. It still does not make sense because it was a very bad business decision to go about things that way. And what did PJ Tucker, right? What did James Harden taking that pay cut result in? Another second round exit. Another second round exit. The 76ers are the kings of second round exits. The whole process has never resulted in an Eastern Conference Finals berth. So it didn't result in anything better than what they've been dealing with. There was no extra reward. It was just another second round exit. And now it seems like with Morey at the helm, he's running the ship ashore. Like this ship's about to sink. So I think at this point, if I'm the owner, you have to file Daryl Morey. You have to fire him. You have to get rid of him and then give James Harden a max extension. But that's the thing is, we always talk about GMs. How much of this was ownership too? That's kind of what I'm wondering. How much of it was ownership didn't want to pay him after last year because Harden kind of struggled. I mean, it could be a collective thing where even if you fire Morey, that doesn't fix anything because he doesn't trust the front office either. So it's just a bad business decision. That's not an excuse for it whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, one thing about their owner, I think his name is Josh Harris. He just recently got approved a few weeks ago to as the majority owner of the Washington, whatever they renamed their Commander team to. Yeah. And so he's probably very focused on that with the NFL season starting. So yeah, I think, I don't know how much he has to do, but I mean, he just bought an NFL team. I don't think he is that concerned about money right now. But just basketball wise, it's one of those things that we talk about every time a trade is made. It's what does that trade commit you to long term? And when you give up multiple first round picks and trade for James Harden, you have to know he had impending free agency or could become a free agent last summer. That was part of his leverage for getting to Philadelphia, was that he could opt out and leave for whatever team he wanted anyway, just like that was his leverage this summer as well. When you traded for him, just like when we traded for Jeremy Grant or if we trade for OG this summer or whatever, like you have to be willing to already have accepted what it's going to cost to keep James Harden around. Now, if you get lucky and you get a really good trade for him along the way, sure. But like we all know, the Clippers, I mean, from just a little bit of looking into it from the Dame packages and stuff, they don't have much to trade in terms of, like, if you're a contender and wanting to keep contention, you're trading a star to them. So, like, maybe a rebuilding team would like some of their young players and a 2028 and 2030 first, like Miami can trade. But, like, the Philadelphia 76ers, those two picks really do nothing for them right now. And you can get a bunch of good role players, but they don't really need a bunch of good role players. They have several role players. They need that second star next to him, and maybe Maxey steps up into that role and they're fine. But they're kind of screwed without Harden on the team or without getting at least a competent starter for him in a trade. And so, this is the problem. If you didn't want to max out James Harden or give him close to a max at some point, why did you trade for him? Like, it doesn't make sense that you would do that and then a year later be like, oh, we're just gonna be fine if he doesn't even show up and we'll just not trade him. It seemed to have worked out for Ben Simmons, doing that with Morey, holding Ben Simmons out throughout the year until the trade deadline. That's how they got James Harden. But yeah, I saw some things today that like of a New Orleans CJ for James Harden straight up. And that would be hilarious because the Blazers are rumored to have offered CJ and several firsts for Ben Simmons, but that would be like...
Which is just disgusting, by the way.
Yeah,
and we said that.
Right. But now, looking back, it would be basically the 76ers would have traded Ben Simmons and 2 firsts for CJ instead of them getting the first now. So that would be horrible asset management. And we also thought at the time, I mean, it was pretty... They gave up a decent amount to get Harden, but almost everyone thought, like, wow, Morey played this right? He did the right thing by holding Simmons this long. He got super lucky at the trade deadline, maybe you could say that. But he did the right thing because if he trades him for CJ or whatever, they don't have James Harden. So, I think what was perceived to be a win at the time for holding on to Ben Simmons, and it's probably still a win in Morey's mind because he thinks very highly of himself. It's I don't know if you can do that with James Harden. Harden's the type that the more you just sit him out, the less value he'll have, in my opinion, because he'll probably just get really out of shape and stuff. I don't know if he will for sure, but I wouldn't trust that if I'm a team trading for him. And then what team's going to give up anything for him at this point? It's just Daryl Morey's put that team in a horrible position, and it might end up costing them Embiid. I doubt it's this summer, but I mean anything can happen. But it's definitely not too far out of the realm of possibilities in the near future.
And see, people have the argument, well, they shouldn't give James Harden a max. I mean, but that is absolutely not the conversation. The conversation is don't tell him you're going to give him a max if you're not going to give him a max. And it's entirely the same thing with Dame. Don't tell him one thing if you're going to do the complete opposite. Right? I mean, it's just bad business. I think it reflects badly on a GM or ownership group to do that. And I just don't think it's smart for that reason. But then also it's what do you really have to gain from all that? You're going to show other players, other agents that you treat somebody that's willing to do what's best for the team and take a pay cut. You're willing to treat him badly by lying to him. And then not only once, twice, you lied to him about the extension. You lied to him about trading him if he opted in and now he's stuck. That is more so holding a player hostage because he could have opted out and Morey convinced him to opt in. That is more so, quote unquote, holding a player hostage than anything I've seen in the NBA. Miami Heat fans like to say Joe Cronin's holding Damian Lillard hostage. I mean, he's not holding Dame hostage to the extent where Dame could have left this offseason and he convinced him to stay so that he could try and get something for him in a trade and would abide by Dame and then didn't trade him. That's maybe even worse than anything regarding the Dame situation. Now, Dame's been here 11 years and it's a pretty bad situation, but just don't freaking lie to your star guards. And the problem is, it seems like a lot of GMs are maybe willing to do it. Joe Cronin, willing to do it. Daryl Morey, willing to do it. Those guys seem like they're on opposite sides of the spectrum in terms of the manner they talk in, the manner they go about things. Joe Cronin's the nice guy. Daryl Morey has always been the shrewd businessman, right? Doesn't seem to matter. So it's just funny because people talk about player empowerment and like this, they'll use this offseason as an example about how player empowerment has gone too far. But this offseason regarding Damian Lillard and James Harden is not about player empowerment at all. It's about GM empowerment, actually, and them feeling like they have the power to lie to players and not face repercussions for it. Because that's essentially what it's been. It hasn't been Harden. He could have controlled his situation, but he gave Morey the control, trusting that Morey would be a man of his word, and Morey wasn't. Right? Dame signed his extension, thinking that Cronin would be a man of his word, and Cronin wasn't. They both got lied to. It's not about player empowerment, because if they were empowered, these GMs wouldn't be able to lie to them. These GMs are obviously the ones in control, because they're the ones that are lying to these stars, and hold the keys for what happens with them.
That's why if you're Dame, you take that max contract extension and you worry about the rest later. But as Eric Olson says, it's illegal under the CBA to promise a max. Yeah, obviously you can't have a handshake agreement or whatever to do that, but that's not stopping teams from doing it. And there's no real repercussions for doing that because it's Harden's word versus Morey's. And so the NBA can't really do anything, and they can't sign a contract or a binding agreement to like for Harden to produce and be like, nope, we signed this, you have to give me a max, because that's under the CBA you can't do that. So that's why these players have to use every bit of power, like telling teams they don't want to play there, to their advantage.
Yeah. So there's a comment in chat that I just want to read. The Duke of Fall says, couldn't you argue that this works two ways and say something like, Dame said he'd stay here his whole career. We never expected him to say he'd want to go. My question for you is, like, if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whoever, right, and they say, I'll be with you forever, and then you go and cheat on them, are you really going to sit there and say, well, you said you'd be with me forever, so this works two ways? No, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, with Dame, I mean, you can believe what you want. Tori and I firmly believe that Dame was told if the Blazers decided to go young, they would take care of him and stuff. And this is what happened in both Philadelphia and with the Blazers, okay? Cronin and Morey probably even thought that they would do this, right? They probably thought at the time they said it, yeah, we'll do that, right? But what happens is fans start saying, you can't take the Miami package. You can't take the Clippers package if you're the 76ers, right? That's horrible. Like, you're a horrible GM if you take that package, right? And these guys are so egotistical that they just can't, especially Daryl Morey. He thinks he's like the greatest GM of all time, even though he's never won a championship. So this guy is like, wait a minute. If I trade James Harden, even though I promised him I'd trade him, even if it was for just getting something small back, and I maybe don't even get a first-round pick, I get like Batum and Morris and Terrence Mann or something for him. And so I'm forever going to be linked to that trade, and they won't know the context of the trade like 10 years from now. They'll just all end up on some worst trades ever list. You know, Philadelphia traded James Harden for a bunch of expiring crap that never even played after 1 year left and didn't even get a pick for him or whatever. And, you know, Portland got Jaime Jaquez and Nikola Jovic, and they never panned out, and their picks were all terrible. They all ended up being like in the late 20s, and no one panned out from that. And so they ended up getting nothing for Damian Lillard. And so these GMs are now like in a position where they can't really make that trade or aren't willing to do that, and it's like costing them their reputation with the players. So it's just tough. But I always go back to this: don't promise them that. And I firmly believe that Dame was promised if they were going to rebuild Dame could tell them what team he wanted to go to, and they would try to accommodate him, even if it meant getting a worse package back. And if that's the case, you don't say that if you're not willing to come through with that. And that's what I think is why these players like Dame request out and have, a change of mind. It's not because Dame wanted to have a change of mind or wants to leave. It's because this organization basically told him, oh, sorry, we're going with Scoot now. Sorry. And now they're not even willing to trade him to a team he wants to go to. Even it's just, I don't know what these GMs are doing or how to stop it if you're the league. But this is why so many players are asking out lately, and why this happens so many times where these big stars move around so much, because they don't trust the situations they're in long enough.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think there needs to be anything done in the CBA. I think GMs just have to realize that it's not to their benefit. I mean, here's the thing. If you're going to care about what fan bases think, then if fan bases find out that you lied to their star, they're probably going to be pretty mad at you. Now, if you're a PR genius and able to spin it, maybe you can weasel your way out of it. But, I mean, why does it have to come down to those games? Why does it have to come down to those games? Obviously, you can't really spin your way out of the Harden situation if you're Morey, because it's more up front, and Harden just straight up called him out, and it was reported that Harden opted in so that he could get traded to a specific situation. The Clippers have been the team that has been talked about. So it's a little harder to duck and spin PR-wise if you're Daryl Morey, but I'm sure there will be people that defend Morey and Sixers fans that hate Harden because Harden doesn't want to be there and wasn't good enough last year to deserve a max, and will always kind of be anti-player in that regard. It's just at some point, as a fan base, you got to hold a GM accountable, because this isn't in the best interest for anyone. It's not in Morey's best interest. It's not in Harden's best interest. It's not in the fan base's best interest, because they want to see a team that contends. So, if I was a Sixers fan, I'd be very pissed off at Morey. Why would you bring this guy in just to treat him like this? That doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make any sense. You could have brought in a guy that was 75% of the player, and maybe you didn't have to pay him a max, and maybe he was a little bit younger, and maybe you don't have these problems. But instead, Morey's a guy who likes his big names. Okay, well, you're going to get flamed if those big names are lied to. So there's not really a solution, because you can't really police what GMs and players say to each other. A wink-wink deal spoken in a closed-off room when Harden signed his 1-1 last offseason? How do you police that? You can't, unless you just literally place a bug on every single GM. You implant it in their wrist? I mean, how do you police that? You can't.
Players are going to start wearing a wires to their meetings and negotiation meetings.
I mean, maybe they should.
The agents, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they should. Is that in their... It would maybe keep GMs from doing this, but I mean, here's the thing. A wink-wink deal was in Harden's best interest, too, last offseason, because it's okay, well, we can try and win, and then I'm going to get a max, right? So, it was in both the parties' best interest, but you can't lie. It's just bad business. So,
what? See, now I'm kind of worried about the Heat situation, right? Because I think if you look at it, Tyler Hero is probably the best player the Sixers could get for Harden, if we're just talking about a player that could potentially still keep a window open. I mean, you can maybe get lucky with some younger players or some role players or whatever, but I think Maxey and Hero would be a pretty good backcourt combo. So, is it a case where then Miami starts using leverage against the Blazers by saying we could potentially get Harden without giving up anything other than Hero? And, Harden's not probably as good as Dame, or close to as good as Dame at this point in his career. But it's
if that's the case, I expect Dame to be back in training camp for Portland.
yeah. But yeah,
but here's the thing: is Hero in those picks? I mean, I guess it would make sense for a rebuilding team. How is the Embiid situation going to go down if Embiid's pissed off about this?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure they could keep him despite Embiid being mad, but Embiid seems like the type of guy that will be very outspoken and just is willing to burn bridges. Embiid has never pulled punches.
Right.
In the media, or if you're Karl Anthony Towns, he has never pulled punches. Okay? So, how does that play out? And how's that factor into things? And it's just funny how it's like, Blazers get Embiid? I mean, I don't think there's a chance of that.
Well, here's what's going to happen. Embiid's going to become available, and then we're going to find out that Portland was not willing to offer the young guys for him. And that's going to be, like, some people will say that's the right move, just like some people think choosing Scoot over Dame's the right move. That's fine. But this team doesn't want to go all in with all these high-priced players. They love the young route they're going on. So what's going to happen is, in theory, it would expose all their lies about being willing to go all in. Just the right deal didn't become available because they wouldn't be willing to trade for Embiid, who's coming off the MVP season. Yeah, so obviously you're not really going to do better than that in a trade, short of like Giannis or someone becoming available. So that's like as good as you could do in a trade. So if that is on the table and the Blazers don't trade for him, or he gets dealt elsewhere for a package that the Blazers could have possibly matched, like I'm actually here for that, because then what possible excuse could Cronin have other than we've already decided we're going young, so it was too late in the process, or whatever.
It'll be, well, Dame asked out, so they moved on like they should have.
Yeah.
There will always be an excuse. Here's the thing. If you want the narrative to be that Joe Cronin's a good GM and, like, trustworthy and this and that, you will always be able to find an excuse for him. I can sit here and come up for excuses for him, and it'll be, well, that's why Dame should have stayed patient, so that they could have went after Embiid, but Dame masked out and burnt that bridge, so they were going to move on. It's Dame's fault. That's what it will be if people want it to be Dame's fault.
Right.
But at this point, like, given what we've heard, but also their actions have not matched up with their words about being obligated to build a winner around Damian Lillard and wanting to go all in around Dame. And if Embiid becomes available and gets traded, I don't see any team putting up a package that's better than Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, and Shaedon Sharpe. But it's like, if you're willing to overpay to put a winner around Dame, I mean, you're getting him a top 5 player in the league that could help fix your defense. That pick and roll duo automatically makes them maybe a top 3 offense. Just put defenders around them. You got Jeremy Grant as your third scorer still. Like, Matisse Thybulle, you re-signed him. Embiid was actually apparently a little upset that the Sixers traded him, right? Like, that team should be able to contend. You got a top 5 and a top 10 player.
Yeah.
You got 2 top 10 players, in my opinion, in the league if you do that. Like, how does that not contend? The only reason why you wouldn't do that is because you actually don't really care about contending because you want to go young. Like, there is no argument around it, because I don't think a package for Embiid from anywhere surpasses that.
Manny says New York would have a bigger offer than Embiid. No one is getting a better player than Scoot in a trade. Like, this is what we talk about with picks all the time. Someone could offer them 10 first-round picks, but none of them are guaranteed to be top 3 and considered a player that would go number 1 in a bunch of drafts like Scoot would.
Yeah, so, would you trade Scoot for 5 random future firsts right now? I wouldn't.
No.
Would you trade Sharpe for Sharpe and Simons for 2 random firsts apiece? I wouldn't. Plus,
well, apparently Simons isn't even worth, like, freaking.
Well, that's another
whatever.
That's another thing. But Portland can also make their 2024 first to Chicago unprotected and trade 3 future firsts on top of that. So, how does any team compete with Portland's offer? They don't. They don't. Like, Portland, if they want to, if Embiid becomes available, could go out and get Joel Embiid. In my opinion. Like 100%.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Aromancer says OKC, like maybe they view Chet Holmgren as a better prospect than Scoot. And considering they already have Maxey, I mean, maybe. It would just surprise me with how much momentum OKC seems to have right now and still a stockpile of picks and stuff if they went all in on a player like Embiid who's, approaching 30 years old and has injury issues and stuff to like win now. I don't see OKC really doing that, like what happened in the Rock off season.
Yeah, it'd have to be like Chet in 8 firsts.
Yeah.
If it's Chet and 8 firsts, then we can sit here and say, okay, well, maybe they couldn't have beaten that. But shoot, I mean, Scoot versus Chet, like value-wise for Philadelphia, I'd assume they're relatively even, right? Like you're talking about Simons, Sharp in 3 firsts versus 8 firsts. I don't know. That's somewhat even too, like, in my opinion, because I think Sharp and Simons is probably worth about 5 first-round picks.
Well, the only
maybe
thing
that's overvaluing them a little bit, but
3 guards versus when you already have.
Yeah, so you're talking about fit, right? So like that's the thing.
You can flip them.
But that's why it'd have to be like Chet and 8 firsts. If it's like Chet and 3 firsts, I think Philadelphia would rather have Scoot, Sharp, Simons in 3 firsts. Now you can make the argument that Portland shouldn't do that, but I mean, then if you make the argument that Portland shouldn't trade for Joel Embiid, then you're making the argument that Portland should have never seriously ever considered or even talked about building a winner around Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
At that point.
Mm-hmm.
So then it should be, well, Cronin should have never even like entertained it. He should have traded him 2 years ago then. Because coming off a season where he averaged 32 and 7, he wasn't willing to trade for a top 5 player in the league that would be a great fit next to Damian Lillard on both sides of the court. So if that's not good enough, then what was going to be good enough then? So.
Yeah, I don't know. I completely agree. Yeah, it's like if you were truly setting up your asset pool like they've been claiming for, every trade deadline and every offseason move and every draft so far, they would have had to eventually cash in, and you're not going to cash. You can question Joel Embiid all you want, but you're not cashing in on a better player than that. I mean, there isn't even an argument to many players in the entire league better than him. So, if you're not willing to do that, then yeah, I don't see how that's possible. It's not like if we got number 1 and we were having those conversations about trading Wembanyama, because Wembanyama is a big, and he's actually could be considered one of the best players in the NBA. And I'm not saying Scoot can't, but he just didn't play a position of need or a position that can help us get to that point with Dame. So,
yeah, Tyler James says if you want assets, why would you stockpile guards? They're like the least valuable position in the league right now. I absolutely disagree with that. Boston has needed a guard. Miami kind of needed a guard. Like, Denver without Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is their second best player. And he's a guard. Like, guards are important. And, I mean, yeah, Philly would have a lot of guards, but you guys got to think about, like, what mode is the team in if they make this trade? If they trade Embiid for that package, they're going from trying to contend to rebuilding. And it's the same situation as us. Like, they're just trying to get back to the best assets possible for the future, and then down the line, then they'll evaluate fit and cash in on 1 or 2 of those assets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's enough minutes to go around playing Sharp full-time at the 3, and then a 3-guard lineup of, like, Scoot, Maxey, and Simons is 32 minutes a game. Maybe you play 3-guard lineups a little bit, and you figure it out, you know what I mean? Or you can make it a 3-team trade and flip Sharp somewhere for proper asset value. Like, they'll be able to get assets. That's not a problem. I'm sure New York would probably trade 6 firsts right now for Scoot Henderson. Although they have Jalen Brunson. They would have before they got Jalen Brunson. But if it's a team like that, a young team that's good, that needs a point guard,
But
I'm sure Utah would trade a bunch of their firsts for Scoot Henderson right now.
I think New Orleans would too. They wanted to at the draft, and we refused their phone calls after Scoot was on the board. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it just comes down to like Portland. If they want to go that route, they could. If Embiid becomes available out of all this,
well,
and there should not be an excuse for the front office wanting to win but not being able to if Embiid becomes available, in my opinion. But I know that there will be, because there will always be an excuse.
Yeah, I actually think there's a way to do it without including Anthony. So you're talking Scoot, Sharp, Nurkic, Nas, I guess, would have to be thrown in there for salary reasons. And then because now you can trade Scoot with its full salary and all that.
It's like $40 million in salary.
So you could then include, if they wanted young guys like Chris Murray or whatever to, throw those guys in. But then you somehow make a trade to free up future first with Chicago. Kyle Wilson asked earlier what that would look like. I really think it's just, you just go to them and say, hey, we'll change this to a 2024 top 7 protected, and it'll turn into like 4 seconds if it doesn't pan out. And I think Chicago does that because they obviously know that if we're rebuilding, they might not ever see that pick. Or it might be several years down the line, and by that time we could be really good. So I think they would probably do that, and then it frees up your 2026, 2028, and 2030, so you could trade 3 future firsts on top of Scoot, Sharp, and whatever salary filler. I mean, that's... If you're talking about an elite prospect, it's hard to find a better package unless Morey's he's crazy, so he could go for this. I mean, that's one person that I think might take a risk for a Zion in a big trade, so maybe that's what ends up happening if Embiid gets dealt, like Zion and a bunch of firsts, and then New Orleans can justify trading Zion because they got the MVP and all that. But there's...
You want another injury-prone star to build around?
Yeah. But T-Buggy says this is like the Jaylen Brown talk. Embiid isn't coming to Portland. Yeah, I mean, we literally said the front office.
Here, let me word it. We are saying Embiid isn't coming to Portland for the same reason why Jaylen Brown was never seriously coming to Portland, because the front office wants to go young. They want to go the young, cheap route. So, yes, this actually is like the Jaylen Brown talk. Yes.
But much like Jaylen Brown, I would hope that if Embiid becomes available, people would question why we're not pursuing that very much.
I understand not believing that Jaylen Brown was available. Like, not trusting Eric's intel, even though I 1,000% do. Okay, but there is a difference between that and making every single excuse for Joe Cronin when he's proven time after time that he's not actually serious about building a contender. And I mean, the thing is, Dame needs to come out and say Joe Cronin lied. That's why I demanded a trade.
I don't think that's going to happen, but
it's not.
And Colonel Pancakes is right. He says, to be fair, Embiid is on another tier than Jaylen Brown. So yeah, I mean, every time we mention Jaylen Brown, we hear the people say Jaylen Brown wouldn't make us a contender, right? Okay, but you can't say that about Embiid, right? If we got Embiid for Scoot, Sharp, and Nurk and picks, like, we're not a contender. There's no way other than health. Health is the only way we're not a contender if we get Embiid. So, I don't think there's any argument that the future is brighter or whatever, maybe with Scoot, if you truly believe in Scoot. But yeah, so Jimmy Robinson says, and no depth. But that's why we're so frustrated with all these other lack of moves throughout the years at the trade deadlines and in free agency, is because now you don't have the roster necessarily to trade a bunch of guys for it. So even if this is like everyone's like, in a month from now, is like, told you idiots, Cronin had this master plan. He was just waiting for Embiid to become available, or a star that was worth trading all those guys for, and he pulled it off. You guys owe him an apology or whatever. That's the other problem, is his other moves have not been good enough to think that he could still put a competent 8-9 man rotation around Dame and Embiid and Grant or whoever's left. So hopefully,
and let me just say this: if Joe Cronin's master plan was Daryl Morey's going to lie to James Harden, and therefore Joel Embiid's going to demand out, then that's just the most BS plan. Even if it works, that's just the most BS plan.
Right.
Like, what are we talking about here, man? So, I mean, I think it's just obvious at this point. Like, I'm not going to get my hopes up for Embiid to Portland. I might drop a video tomorrow, because I need to drop a video tomorrow on something. I might drop one that has Embiid to PDX in the thumbnail title, but anyway. And here's the thing. Here's the other thing that we have to reiterate a million times. Regardless of if you think he should have went young, there's a different conversation than if he lied. And it's just crazy to me how, like, all his statements about building a winner around Dame, and then he doesn't do it, and it's like, well, he didn't lie at all.
It's just GM speak.
It's just DM speak. Well, you can view it that way, I guess, but I don't see, I don't see how that's not a lie. He made it known that he was obligated to building a winner around Dame. That he would be super aggressive. The only way you don't think he lied is if you think he was super aggressive and couldn't pull anything off, which I guess a lot of people think, but if Joel Embiid becomes available, I mean, if he does, like, that's kind of the whole thing with this.
How more super duper win now mode can you get than Joel Embiid, right?
Yeah, and I mean,
how many borderline, we're going to be borderline aggressive and push all our chips in, and it's going to hurt, but we got to do it for Dame. How much more can you get than that, fulfilling that statement than Joel?
You remember before the offseason when I said, you know what, all the stuff that we've been frustrated that Joe Cronin has done or not done leading up to this point, you remember when I said this offseason is a clean slate for him, but it's about action. Yep. It's about action. I'm tired of hearing words. I'm tired of hearing freaking GM speak and then everything being excused because it's only GM speak. It's about action. And that's basically what Dame said. It's about pulling it off. Okay, not sitting here at the end of the summer like, well, we tried again, but we just couldn't do anything again. It's about freaking action. It's about having a guy that when he has a solid hand can do something with it. Joe Cronin had, in my opinion, a really good hand. He had the 3rd overall pick. He had Scoot Henderson fall into his lap, for crying out loud. The guy that we hype up as a generational prospect.
Yeah.
But his hand wasn't good enough. BS. It's about action. That's what I said going into this offseason. I said, I am going to hold Joe Cronin accountable based on his actions. His actions proved his words to be BS GM speak. So, like, what are we arguing here? He obviously did not follow through on his words. Obviously not.
Yep. And so Chadco asked, is it Cronin who wants to go young, or is it Jody, Burt, all parties? So, trying to think of how to start this. Okay, so months ago, we're talking like middle of the season-ish, I started hearing stuff that Cronin is enamored with Simons and Sharp as the future. And then from that point, I started hearing different things about how they don't want to trade the pick once that, they started being bad. They didn't want to sacrifice the future or whatever. They were super high on those guys. They didn't want to end up trading Anthony. But then, the trade deadline happens and you're like, well, he's saying he's going to push all his chips in and he wants to win with Dame. Like, how much more blatant can he be than like he's saying the exact opposite of what people are telling me, right? And I like, so I'm like, dude, like I can't do anything with this information because like it's just not. I mean, I didn't even want to believe it. I don't know if it was just like wishful thinking on my part that he would come through for Dame, or if it was just that like I just didn't actually believe that he would go against every single word he said in every press conference. So like I just like I had it on the back burner, but like I just, you know, we get the third pick and he's talking about how he's going to use it as an asset and all this stuff, and I just never believed it. And then it all made sense once we kept the pick, and then I find out that, you know, he loves Scoot and thinks Scoot's going to be amazing and all this stuff. So, like, my whole issue with it is fine. I wanted him to say on draft night, like, I mean, he doesn't have to come out and say he's trading Dame or whatever, but I just didn't want him to say they're still committed to winning in the timeline and all that stuff, all this BS after the meeting with Dame. Like, we're still committed to winning with him, and we still have seeds planted that weren't draft seeds. They were can be done at any point between now and free agency and blah, blah, blah. Like, just freaking tell us we're rebuilding and we're going to go young and we're super excited about, and we don't think it's going to be a long process. In fact, we think we're going to be like great right away if we make the right moves. Like, then people would be like much more excited about now, and I think people would be I mean, a lot of people are hyped about Scoot, but I just think it would have been a more collective thing. And so then you combine that with Bert, who thinks he knows how to run a basketball team, but he has no idea what he's doing, and he is trying to be Paul, and he's not Paul, and but he has so much say within the organization
that's what Chad Doing would have you believe,
right? Yeah. So you factor that in, and then the bottom line is Jody and Cronin can say that Jody is willing to do whatever it takes to pay the tax. But there has not been a single example of that happening since she took over, outside of the team she inherited, and the next year where I believe she then started to turn on Olshey after giving him an extension the summer before. And that was to get under the tax at the deadline, and Olshey didn't do it. He traded Scal and got close to getting under, but didn't actually do it. And I think from that point, she started to become a little frustrated with him. But of course, she's not going to fire him because she's cheap, and he just signed an extension. So, yeah, it's a case where I think it's all the above. Like, Cole doesn't know what he's doing, and he has too much influence. Jody is cheap, and Cronin is enamored with his route. And at some point in the last few months, they started viewing Dame as an annoyance. And I've heard that from several people as well, that Dame's demands to win and build a winning roster, it's like they started being like annoyed by him saying that, even though it was what they were telling him, that he was just reiterating what he was being told. And that's why he feels like he's been lied to. And he was also told that if the Blazers did ever go this exact same route that they are going this summer, that he would be taken care of, and he would not have to worry about that situation because he will get to go pretty much wherever he wants to go. And so this whole situation is just messed, and it's so dumb. Yeah, right. Eric Olson, like, asking to win is so annoying. Like, I don't know how you start to think that way, but somewhere along the line, they became enamored with the young route, and now kind of thought Dame was his, oh, I'm not going to stay if we're going young or whatever. It's like, well, you told him that you wouldn't make him stay if you went that route anyway. So it just makes no sense.
Shout out to Don J. Tor. 2,500 rupee dono. He's going to be donating in American dollars here soon because he's coming to America. So shout out to Don and J. Tor with the 250 rupee dono. I think he said this might be his last rupee dono. So shout out to him coming over to the States. Says, hi guys, big fan here. Who can be an under-the-radar target for us? Love Blazers Uprise, go Blazers. Thank you, Don and Jay. Appreciate you as always, man. Under-the-radar target is apparently Joel Embiid. Other than that, I mean,
There's no one left.
There's no one left, and we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
I think Cronin's on vacation, so Embiid then is the only target. So he's not actually a target because the Blazers want to go young, but I mean, who else? Kelly Oubre? Like, we're not going to sign Kelly Oubre.
Yeah. An underrated.
We would have signed him by now, I think. I don't know. Like, he's going to go be a minimum contract on a contending team. We don't want to pay him.
I think you gotta hope for just some sort of young big man. I mean, maybe you think that's Jovic, but I still think we need two, especially if Nurk's part of the Miami trade. So, like, you just got to hope. I'll talk about this more later, but maybe like a Day'Ron Sharp or something. Like, you just find a young big that maybe you think you could turn into something if you give him more minutes. He played, watched Claxton a lot last year. Maybe he learned some things on how to become a better help defender or switchable big. And you just try to find something. Maybe you get, I don't know who else would qualify as this, but just find someone like that. Or as we'll get to in a minute, I think you just tank for 2 years and go after someone that reclassified recently and just put all your chips in hoping you maximize your ability to get the first pick in 2025.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second because there's a comment. Chris R says, if you have a hot girlfriend and she's constantly making ultimatums, at some point it gets old and you move on no matter how attractive she is. Bro, if you have a girlfriend that's making ultimatums and the ultimatum is that you don't lie to her, cheat on her, and you stay loyal to her, then if that gets old and you break up with her because she expects you to do right by her, then that's on you. Like, there's a certain level in relationships, in the business world, and in the romantic world. Hopefully, most of you know what relationships are in the romantic world.
Like, what if you promised her kids or something, and then you said, like, 10 years into your relationship, oh, I actually don't want kids, sorry. Like, she's just supposed to be like, oh, okay, well, you've been telling me the whole time we're going to have kids eventually after we had some fun beforehand, right? And so that changes the dynamic. Like, it doesn't matter what she said before that. If you're not willing to do something that was, like, part of the basis of your whole relationship together and your loyalty to each other, then, and you just switched that up on her all of a sudden, that's not something that she should, or you should be annoyed with her for.
Shao Cowlson, $2 dono says, but Tori, getting a wife implies going all in. Yeah. I mean, it is going all in, man. She's gonna take your last name. That's pretty committal. And that's the whole point about relationships in the business world and in the romantic world, is it is a two-way commitment. And if one party is saying, I'm committed, and then all their actions are saying, that's BS, I'm lying to you, you can't blame the person for being lied to. Like, what are we doing?
Taylor Backer says, a few months ago, she says that she doesn't want any more cats, she wants a kid. And then you buy her a really nice cat and tell her it's not your normal cat. This isn't your average cat. It's more like a kid than a cat.
Oh, we got Gray in here in the perfect time. What if you have a girlfriend that is hot and looks great, everyone thinks is hot, but just doesn't work for you? What? I mean, he doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for you.
Well,
you as in us as in the team, that's different.
Okay, then trade him to Miami, get your 4 firsts, and move on. Like, that's fine. Like,
no. But instead of just breaking up with her, Eric, we're gonna go cheat on her and lie to her and like make, and then we're gonna try and gaslight her into her being the bad guy and tell all her friends that we actually didn't cheat on her, that she cheated on us, and she's leaving us when we've been trying to do the best by her, even though we cheated on her. That's what we're gonna do. I mean, we can keep running with the romantic analogies if you guys really, really want to, but that's how we view it. And I think we have very good reason to view it that way. So, if you wanted to break up with her, you should have just said you wanted to break up with her instead of worrying about how your friends were going to perceive it and trying to look like the good guy. And playing a whole PR battle.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I can't break up with her because then my friends will think I'm not as cool. Or I'm not...
It's just games. It's just BS. Like, oh, but that's relationships, Eric. Everybody does it, so it's okay. It's just, it's just business. I mean, it's just relationships, right? Like, so, I mean, okay. Somebody keeps bringing up Stephen Vaughn because I just dropped a podcast with him. Wants to know, Eric, like, what do you think about Stephen Vaughn's question? Is Dame overvalued and overrated and selfish and blah, blah, blah? Like, that he asked me on the podcast. If you guys haven't watched it, you missed out.
All right. There's 2 parts, yeah. 1, do I think Dame is overrated? Heck no. Dame is not overrated. Dame is an amazing player. I mean...
See, but then he'll say, Dame is an amazing player.
Yeah. I mean, this guy... I mean, just look at his stats last year, both analytically and stuff. He put up one of the best offensive analytics seasons of all time. I mean, yeah, you can argue defense, whatever, but most high-level usage offensive players aren't great defenders. I mean, there's some exceptions, of course, but you're not getting often the productivity you get from a Damian Lillard while also expecting him to be an elite defender. So put the pieces around him to have an elite defense. And Dame has been a part of a top 10 defense with not that skilled of defenders. And he's taken a team to the Western Conference Finals with not that skilled of a roster that had injuries and stuff. So no, he's not overrated. I'd love to see... And I think this is going to go down in a long history of what ifs for the Blazers. We can have our own Marvel what if series. Is that what if Dame would have actually gotten some serious help? And I think if he's traded to Miami, you're going to see next year just how not overrated he is. I mean, I think that team is going to be really good. And I think he's going to just show out.
Yeah.
All right, if you want to respond to that, you can go ahead.
Well, okay, let me just say, like, about Steven, I know we get criticism for, we can't handle a difference of opinion. I love doing podcasts with Steven simply because he loves to play freaking devil's advocate and just ask me questions, which, like, might not even be his opinions, and we just debate and argue, but, like, in a respectful way. I think it's entertaining, because me and him couldn't disagree more on some things, and our debates, I feel like, are pretty entertaining. So we dropped a whole podcast where we disagree, but I'm down to have him and his opinions as part of Blazers Uprise, and like going forward, there may be more of that. What other YouTube channels are gonna bring in somebody that thinks completely differently? Okay, I don't know. Maybe other YouTube channels would, but I don't see it happening. Okay, I'm willing to bring in people that think differently and have different opinions, and you guys can latch onto them and say, "See, this guy's better than Tori and Eric." Like, go ahead, whatever, And then some people will be like, "This guy sucks." It is what it is, If this platform appeals to every Blazer fan because there's somebody for them that they agree with, cool. even if they disagree with me. But I will always take my side in a debate with Steven. I think I debate him pretty well. And one of the things in that I wanted to respond to was, I mean, Gray just always comes in here. Dame isn't a great basketball player. He's a great offensive player. Can we agree with that? Well, Gray, who just led his team to a championship? It was Nikola Jokic, okay? Tony Allen was never going to lead his team to a freaking championship, okay? There's a reason why Nikola Jokic, who's a great offensive player, and, I mean, maybe he's an average defender now, but in the past has been looked at as a bad defender. There's a reason why he just led his team to a championship, while Tony Allen, despite being a phenomenal defensive player and a below-average offensive player, was a liability at times in the playoffs. Because, for the millionth freaking time, we gotta stop acting like offense and defense are of equal value in star players. Look at the top guards in the league. How many of them are good defenders? The best guards in the league, how many of them are good defenders? Most of them are bad defenders, because it is almost impossible to be 6'2" and have that much responsibility offensively and then have the energy to be a good defensive player when you don't have the advantage of having length and size when everybody else on the court is bigger than you and you're guarding the fastest position most of the time. Like, that's why most of the best guards in the league are not good defenders. But like, people who want to discredit Dame will just sit there and say, well, see, Dame, he's not a great basketball player. He's only great on offense. He sucks at defense. Blah. Do you say that about literally every good guard in the league? Like,
are you going to say that about Scoot when he's the same way?
Yeah, if Scoot ends up being the best case scenario, I kind of expect him to be a bad defensive player because he's so good offensively. You don't see guys that are top 10, top 15 players in the... That's the thing, like, but passing is offense, right? So are we going to be saying the same thing about Scoot then, Gray, down the line? I know you love Scoot. Because if Scoot's averaging 30 and 8 offensively, he probably doesn't have the energy to play lockdown defense at 6'2".
Yeah.
Instead, we're talking about George Gervin. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And the second part was, do I think that Portland is overvaluing Dame? At this point, 100%. They are overvaluing what they can get for him in the circumstance they caused. They caused this situation. And I'm so freaking sick of this. It's always, Cronin has no leverage. He has no leverage. What is he supposed to do? O'Shea's fault. Blah, 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 blah. Like, this drives me freaking bananas. He couldn't trade Norm and Rocco for anything good because we were over the tax. So he had to give him away, right? And then we were under the tax, but he still had to give CJ away because we had to get more under the tax or something. I don't know. Whatever. And then, yeah, like all the flexibility he had last summer, like he doesn't do anything with that. And like somehow that's excusable and stuff. And now it's like, yeah, now it's Dame and his agent's fault and for only selecting one team or whatever. It's like, well, if it's true that you were thinking about going young when you got the third pick, or like I said earlier, possibly way before that, why were you not exploring what you could get for Dame privately, and letting Dame know that this might be something that a route they go? Why did you put yourself in a position where you said at every point publicly that you are going to win with Dame? Not only were you going to win with Dame, you owed it to Dame to do it. You were going to be borderline ridiculous with how aggressive you were, ridiculously aggressive with it. All that stuff added up. And you still, after drafting Scoot Henderson, apparently were not taking phone calls on Damian Lillard. So where were you expecting to get value for him, causing this situation, knowing everyone, based on Dame's comments, you knew Dame was not going to be happy if you drafted and kept Scoot Henderson. You did it, and still didn't want to admit that you were going to trade Dame or whatever, which is fine if you don't want to do that publicly. But why did you not bet that scenario out ahead of time so you could value the situation and provide a good enough valuation to know what the outcome was, to where you're not stuck now with one team who has the best offer by far? Like, that's still the factor that no one brings up. Everyone craps on Miami's offer. It's by far the best we are going to get for Dame. We're not getting better than potentially 4 firsts and a couple young guys. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So that they put themselves in a position where they either look dumb because they accept the Miami offer, or they look dumb because they don't. And this is exactly what we were talking about earlier with Cronin and Morey putting themselves in this position. They caused this, and now they're trying to like blame Dame and make it the public. Yeah. It drives me crazy.
It's just at the point where, like, I don't think anything else we say on this is going to change a single mind.
Right. I'm just
like it's just at the point, like, we're venting. It's just like I sit here and think about it, like, people have so completely made up their minds one way or the other, like,
yeah. But in my opinion,
it doesn't even matter to talk about.
When you're talking about Dame's value to Portland prior to Scoot, it didn't matter to me that he was 33. I felt like he still had several good years. It didn't matter to me that he was going to be making $60 million, because that's still several years down the road. It doesn't affect free agency this year that he's making $60 million 2 years. It didn't affect the fact that you could have made a trade or something with the 3rd pick or something and been fine. It didn't affect the trade deadline when you refused to take a James Wiseman or something where you would have had a tradable salary this summer that wasn't like a negative contract or something that you could have matched with the 23rd pick or something to get someone like a Dorian Finney-Smith or something like that. Like, all those things added up to where, like, it just, I lost my train of thought, but like they didn't put themselves in a position to do that, and now they're expecting to get more for Dame when he was valuable to them. He's not as valuable to other teams. Other teams see that contract and know that you have to pay him. They don't know the situation as clearly. Dame's not as loyal or necessarily, like, I mean, he might be, but they don't, like, a team trading for Dame doesn't know if he's going to bounce around the next few years, maybe. And so, like, it's a case where they completely mess this up. And yeah, I agree with you that no one's going to change their mind on this, but I do feel like they overvalued him in a trade because they didn't properly value him at all. Like, in any situation, they just refused to even look into that.
Yeah. Chat's fun tonight, man. It's been a minute since we've had one of these chats tonight, and always count on Mr. Highlighter to liven it up. Anyway, Smog had a funny point, right? Because there's a whole argument. Dame's assists are out of attrition. They're not actually good, right? And it's like Smog said something along the lines of, and basically I reworded it to, like, so Dame drives, collapses the defense, and then kicks to a wide open shooter. That's just not a good team play, Eric. Apparently, because he had to pass because there was 3 defenders he drew to him. Like, bro, what the hell are we talking about, bro? God. Yeah. It's just so, I can't. I can't.
Other than Dame, the Blazers have been one of the worst teams in the NBA for several years at attacking the rim, collapsing the defense, pressure on the rim, all that kind of stuff.
Everybody needs to stand on the 3-point line and play hot potato around the 3-point arc so we can share the ball together. And then when somebody has to shoot a shot, we should shoot out of attrition, not pass out of attrition. Team basketball. Anyway. You want to... How do I segue this? You wanted to talk about Cooper Flagg a little bit.
Yeah, I guess we could save it for Thursday if you want.
Yeah, I could take it out of the title, and we can save some content for Thursday. And I can put Morey in the thumbnail instead. I'm gonna do that right now, actually. Perfect. On the fly.
But yeah, so before Harden made those comments today, I wanted to talk about how the Blazers should, in a Dame trade, should be looking at every angle of the 2025 draft. No matter how small of a chance you get, is like maximizing those. So I just will talk about some of the ways we can do that. But I mean, there's a chance the Blazers themselves could be bad. I know Travis Demers was on Rip City, the Reddit Rip City, whatever you say it, Rip City Reddit thread saying that Portland, they've failed if they're bad in 2026 or whatever, not thinking that it's 2025, so it's only 2 seasons, not 3. But we'll get more in depth, look at some deals that would maximize our 2025 verse.
Eric, wouldn't he have been saying that 2 years ago? Yeah, with the same logic, like 2 years ago when Cronin took over. If we're in rebuild mode 2 years from now, there's a lot more wrong than just being in rebuild mode.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anthony Gregori says, as a Heat fan, I agree. Dame stinks, and we shouldn't have to give up more than a couple second rounders for him. Yeah, it's not that bad of overvaluing, but I mean, I still think 4 first, a couple young guys expiring contracts. It's not great, but it's
terrible.
It's adequate. It's enough to be okay with what you got. It's not gonna set yourself up for like dominance over a decade, but hopefully you already have the pieces in place to do that. So I think if they manage to get 4 first, that's including Hero going to another team, which we'll talk about more in terms of getting 2025 first on Thursday. But yeah, I don't think that's like terrible, and I think Miami can say, well, we got a top 75 player for Hero and 3 firsts and a couple young guys. I think both teams can be okay with that. It's not like anything that the Blazer fan base is going to be like, yes, we got Jovic and 4 firsts, like we're set for life. But it's also, I don't think it's like Cronin needs to be fired if he does that. Like I actually will, if Cronin pulls off that trade, he gets at least 4 firsts and a couple young guys. I'm gonna say that the Blazer, that I'll surprisingly not bash Cronin for that. I'll say it's fine, and that's the best he could do in the circumstances.
You heard it there first. Actually, we've been saying that. We got a comment. Rebuilds are great. Like when you first start dating someone, hopefully it remains exciting and you get married and have kids. Bro, it's like having a great wife that's loyal and then ditching her for the hot young thing, hoping that she'll be a better wife. Normally that doesn't work out. Maybe you can get lucky, but should have been loyal to the one that was loyal to you. Yeah, anyway. Or you should have just said, hey, I want to see other people. Boom. Simple. Easy. Communication is key. Cronin didn't have to lie. The thing is like, okay. Final argument. Okay. I am tired of Blazer fans saying that Joe Cronin had to lie to us so that we would be happier with him. I'm tired. This is legitimately what people were saying when he says, oh, he had to say he wanted to build around Dame. He couldn't tell fans. He couldn't face the backlash. He couldn't tell fans that they wanted to go young. Then they'd be mad. Bro, why does he have to lie to us for us to approve of him? That doesn't make sense. Normally, if somebody has to lie to get approval, they're compensating for something. Just tell the freaking truth. He doesn't have to lie.
Well,
I'd have more respect for him if he just faced the backlash, Eric.
Once again, people can choose what they want to believe, but I think not only was he lying publicly, but he was lying behind the scenes as well, while also screaming transparency, and I'm all about transparency and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even talking about the private stuff. I'm talking about publicly saying all the public stuff. Because people will defend it by saying he had to say that. Yeah. It's not a lie because he had to say it. Okay, he had to lie. Why do you have to say that? Why do you have to mislead us?
Yeah.
Like, why are we... why do we want to be misled? I don't understand this fan base sometimes, man. Shout out to Truly Spencer PDX, $2 dono. Says, being legal to pump our own gas is a game changer. Speaking of not understanding things...
Yeah, I heard you had to go laugh at an Oregon gas station or something.
Oh, man. As a Washingtonian, filling up gas in Oregon, because if you guys don't know, it is now legal to pump your own gas in Oregon. Before, you had to have somebody do it for you.
Well, at certain gas stations or certain marked lanes or whatever.
Yeah, but... There's just been twice in the past 2 days where I've just been at an Oregon gas station. I've just been cracking up laughing. like making it, okay, I'm not making it obvious that I'm laughing at people, but it's just laughing at these Oregonians that are just like dropping their gas cap under their truck and then like crawling under it and just like confused, like pumping diesel into a car that's not diesel. Like, yeah, I was at I left Tillamook today, and I was at an Oregon gas station, obviously, because Tillamook's in Oregon. It's just funny. It's funny seeing instructions, like step-by-step instructions on gas pumps as to how to pump your own gas. It's funny, man. And I understand if you live in Oregon and you haven't pumped your own gas, like, okay, you're not gonna maybe know how to pump your own gas. It's just funny because, like, where I'm from, that's something that is just like secondhand knowledge. If you drive a car, you know how to pump gas. It's not difficult. So it's been funny filling up in Oregon the past couple of days. Thank you, Spencer, for the dono.
I mean, yeah, I've lived in Oregon my whole life, so but I mean, I've driven in Washington like hundreds of times, so like I've had to fill tanks there. I've driven to California several times, like, so I've been to other states. I know how to pump my own gas. And it's funny though, like my wife and my daughter, they have no clue how to do, so they're probably one of those people like just staring at the thing all confused and stuff, like, wait, how does it start? How do you start it or whatever? But yeah. Or they just go in the line with the attendant still.
Yeah. I like pumping my own gas. I don't want somebody to pump my gas, man. I don't know if they're going to screw the cap tight enough because it doesn't really make that clicking sound. So, I don't know.
I mean, I don't mind either way. I don't like, if it, like, I don't know, some of those handles and stuff are kind of disgusting, but other than that, it's fine.
Don't they have hand sanitizer right there?
Sure.
Like, in Washington, they got hand sanitizer right there. Like, get out, stretch your legs, breathe a little bit of fresh air, pump your gas. Maybe breathe the fumes from the gas. I don't recommend that, but I mean, maybe that's what you're into. Chow Gray Hughes Investigates, $5 dono, says, well, thanks for not timing me out. 40 wins if Nurk stays, but our bet is regardless of that. Yeah, regardless if Nurk stays. I mean, good luck, Gray. Good luck, man. Good luck. Like, sure. It would be better for me if we get 40 wins than if we get 25, I guess. So, I hope you're right. But is that better long term? I don't know if you should want 40 wins. What, we get the 13th pick? I kind of would rather have the number 1 pick if we're going to be in the lottery, right? Like, I don't know. I'm going to next year not really caring what happens. Until we start tanking, and then I'm rooting for every game to be a loss.
Actually, we should win 40 games next year and then tank the year after, which we'll talk about on Thursday.
Well, yeah. I mean,
that'd be so weird for a
rebuild.
I know, that'd be so weird. Just we set out scooting 2024, 2025 just to Vancouver.
God, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, that's the thing. We're hedging our bets. If Scoot doesn't pan out, I mean, there's a better chance at Cooper Flagg, I guess, and other top prospects. So, that's kind of where the rebuild comes into play. If it doesn't work out, you hedge your bets.
Yeah.
Because you still get top picks. So, I mean, if we're tanking, I'm rooting for the losses. Otherwise, I'm not going to stress over wins next year. I'm not going to be there after, Game 6 and we're 2-4 and we just lost a close one to the freaking Memphis Grizzlies or something. I'm not going to be sitting there upset on a post-game show. Some of you might like that. Because I know a lot of you care about me and don't want to see me upset. You don't want to see me negative, right? That's what I've been told, so...
And Gray, we literally say that we think the Blazers are trying to win as many games as possible, so it would not surprise me if they do go for it and don't end up sucking and tanking. But, I mean... They still don't have a balanced roster, so I don't know. Even if they do go for it, if not many changes are made, they don't really have a lot of front court depth.
How's it weird that people think we will suck next year? We have no front court depth. We don't have a single star on our team right now. Like somebody who's made an all-star game. We're super young and inexperienced. Everything that was a problem last year is even more of a problem this year. How are we better? Oh, because Dame sucks. My bad.
Addition by subtraction.
Yeah, we're better without Dame. Anyway. All we need, Eric, is one more wing that hustles. That's all we need.
The Bible doesn't hustle.
Apparently not.
Hustle.
I don't know.
Chris Murray.
No, he said one
Walker.
more.
Okay.
We need one more. We need one more guy with some... We need Josh Hart. That's what we need. That's all we need. Oh, that's the one misstep in the past 2 years is we lost Josh Hart, man.
Our Heat fan Anthony Gregori says Hawkes hustles. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, awesome. Hawkes, he plays pretty hard. I mean, shoot, I'll hustle. I'll get in a little better shape, and I'll hustle. I'm 6'4". I'm a wing. On the Blazers, I'm a wing. On every other team, I'd be a guard, but on the Blazers, I'm a wing, Eric.
Oh, my God. I could not handle it.
Oh, God. I would love to have Hart back. Remember how great he played when Dame didn't? 10 games for a tanking team? Dame got him so many wide open threes, and he was scared to shoot, bro. But that's Dame's fault. Dame got him 2 wide open by drawing 3 defenders and passing out of attrition. That's why Dame's not a team player.
And then, it's not like Dame actually passed the ball. It's weird. I think I've been gaslighted into believing that Dame didn't actually pass the ball out to Hart on that game-winning three-pointer against the Heat this year. I think Dame just took the ball and shot it because he was a ball hog, right?
Yeah. Well, Dame wants to be in Miami, so he tried to show Miami that he can actually be a team player and a part of Heat culture.
Yeah, he had already checked out at that point when we were, 9-3 at that point or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, this is fun. This is how we should go. We should just run with it. Let's do it. Don't clip it out of context though. Devin, yes, I don't understand how Rodney Hood was on that because when he started, he was phenomenal for the 20 games he started with Dame. So shot 50% from 3. I don't understand how Ariza was on that. That didn't really what is the criteria too? How many starts? It didn't really make sense to me. We're talking 1 year of Victor Claver who started maybe a couple of games.
Yeah. Rodney Hood, the year he went down, which is pretty much the only. I mean, he started a handful of games outside of this, but the 1 year he actually started at small forward, he played 21 games and shot 49.3% from the field, or from 3 and 50% from the field. So, yeah horrible.
It didn't make sense, man. Rodney, I don't know, people seem to forget, especially NBA fans that aren't Blazer fans, people forget how good Rodney Hood was.
Yeah.
like in that Denver series the year before, and then the start of that year, like the Achilles injury, I think he'd still be a role player in the league if it wasn't for that freaking Achilles injury. Don't play players on sore Achilles. Yeah. Right? Shout out to you if you were there for that stream back in the day.
Alex,
anyway,
when we're talking about Rodney Hood blowing his Achilles, please don't say that Jabari Walker will pop this season. Just
no popping.
Bad timing, man.
Yeah. No popping. Okay, we don't want no popping. We want no crackling. Okay. Don't say he's going to blow up this season. Okay, don't say that either. Go off seems like a safe phrase.
Breakout, yeah.
Yeah, breakout.
We're just messing with you, Alex.
Anyway. That wraps up our stream. I said it wasn't going to be an hour and a half before a stream. It's an hour and a half because we got on tangents. You know how it is. I said this time it's for real because it's hot in here and it's still an hour and a half. But anyway, thank you guys. I'm going to have a video tomorrow morning. Stay tuned for that. It'll probably be on Embiid, but you guys should watch it anyway. I'm going to have a new ad read in it that I think is kind of entertaining. So hopefully you guys enjoy that and enjoy the new sponsor. Hopefully it's a product that works for you guys. And anything else that you want to cover, Eric?
No, thanks everyone for watching. Appreciate all of you for tuning in, including the new burner for Kyle. Hope to see you all on Thursday. If you want to talk about Cooper Flag or miss that, we will for sure talk about that on Thursday, short of a big trade happening between now and then. But yeah, so Cooper Flag, we'll talk about his prospects and what makes him so great and why the Blazers should be doing everything in their power to maximize their chances at him on Thursday. So I hope you tune in for that. Have a good couple of days until then.
Yep. Well done. I have nothing left to say. So thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring this edition of Blazers Uprise Live. Promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, 50% reward bonus. We are out of here. Catch you in the video tomorrow or the stream on Thursday. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.